Well, the goals behind the ranch is to provide a piece of property and we can provide housing and facilities for research and development. It seems like everybody has different keys, and yet every individual on a personal level is missing some certain element. And if you put them all together in teams, then perhaps maybe we can resolve those missing elements. We can find out something that we're missing and put them together and put out a product that's marketable, something that actually works, and we can demonstrate it on a much larger scale.
Sure. So it's really kind of bring people together. That's what it's all about.
Exactly, and then we can pool our resources and funding, and yet instead of traveling and living out of our suitcases in hotels, we can have a facility which provides housing at the same place.
Yeah.
But then again, not to put all of our eggs in one basket, the idea is to network outward, and one of the ideas I thought in mind was the eco-villages, because they already have enough places to house people. There's people stepping forward and say, well, I got 10 plus acres or 40 acres here or 50 or so, but I asked them, do you have enough to house groups of 5 to 20 people? Well, no, that's going to take a lot more time and money and effort to do, but eco-village is already set up that way. So if we could become a hub for technology, the people at the eco-villages, for example, they could show us how to take our biomass and put it down our garbage disposal and use that for fertilizer for lawns and gardens. In exchange, we could show them how to build something that they can move themselves around the planet that's much more efficient.
So this almost sounds like kind of like an artist commune for scientists then, right?
Right, but stepping it up a bit, using the technology.
Yeah,
and just not just leading by example, but living by example. Because if we're going to put together something that we want to sell to the people, we have to actually use it ourselves so we can live by example.
So this is actually not just a way to kind of pool your resources and develop better products, but it's also a way to kind of set up a demonstrator to show that a sustainable community is possible inexpensively. Right?
Exactly. And by networking with the eco-villages, we improve their quality of life, they improve ours. We can move our people and our technology around, so we don't have to worry about some hostile takeover.
Yeah. Well, let me ask Bill for a sec. Now, Bill, I understand the location out there in Arizona, right? Part of that was from a vision that you had a while back.
That's right, Tim. Back in 1977, I was taken aside one day, well, I should say one evening, and shown a vision of my future.
Okay.
And what I saw blew me away. I mean, what I thought was my future life, okay, just completely ended, and this new one took over. So all I can see in my mind is my future self. Okay, it could be 20 years, 30 years away at that time, of developing these technologies, these advanced technologies, on a place that looked like a desert terrain. And I actually saw the vehicles we were building. I mean, I was actually inside the vehicle.
Okay.
Okay, and these were craft. These were disc-like craft. And we were designing and constructing this technology.
Well, so this vision was compelling enough that you've taken trips to Arizona to look for the location, right?
Yeah, I did that back in 1989 and 90. I wanted to see if I can find this place.
Okay.
So I literally spent a year, I do contract engineering work. I was working at Honeywell and Garrett Air Research down in Tucson. And I would spend the weekends in my Jeep traveling around Arizona trying to find something that looked like this terrain that I saw in a vision.
Yeah.
And at the time I couldn't find it. And I reasoned that, well, maybe it just isn't time yet. Maybe somebody else locates it, because it's going to be a place that's going to involve a lot of people, a lot of engineers, scientists, and it's going to be amazing. It'll be an astounding place.
Yeah.
The technologies that'll come out of this.
Yeah, well, it seems like with a lot of the collaborative work that goes on online, in a way, it's difficult to do all that remotely.
Oh, exactly, Tom.
And so it would be better. I think it would be more emotionally fulfilling too to have people able to gather in one area for more than just conferences, because the conferences really in a way, what you're doing when you're not working on it, right? It's better to have the collaboration there when you're doing the work. So.
That's right, Tim. You know, people like John Hutchison, you know, he's interested in joining a ranch project, and he's done amazing things on his own.
Well,
but he's just underfinanced, you know, and he needs some backing.
Now, I should focus in here on the little poster again. You've got a list of companies here. Consortium members are in Alek. Now, obviously, that's you, Bill. And then there's, let me see, Tap 10, the world's smallest Tap 10 sticker. There we go. Now HE, Hutchison Effect, so that's John, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now Steve Ellswick and Terry, they already live down in the Arizona area, right? So for them, that should be pretty close. Now Richard Hoagland, the Enterprise mission, I was kind of surprised, but so is he looking at moving there too, or?
Well, Richard couldn't send me his logo fast enough, so he wants to join the team.
Now the one that I'm not familiar with is X Genesis. Can you tell me a bit about that company?
Yeah, X Genesis, that was a friend of mine I met back in working at Motorola. We're developing software for the Saab Motor Corporation.
Okay.
And we're working on what are called door modules, developing software. They had an array of about 20 or 30 of these little computing devices scattered around the car. And our project involved writing software. And Rick was a programmer there, and he had a son by the name of David. And David is he's totally into space.
Yeah. So he decided to
exploration of space.
Join in then.
And he's a real fanatic.
Well, out of curiosity now, in terms of what each different group is contributing, as I understand it, you guys, actually I should go to Gary for a second. You guys are raising funds to put this all together, right?
Well, that's something that's going to be an eventual process. We haven't raised any funds, to be honest. We're looking to try to accumulate a pool, a network of people who instead will invest in property of their own, invest in building structures to work in of their own accord. Maybe we could pool our people together. Our people will be like, as mentioned in the consortium, like Steve Ellswick, for example. He already has a nice, strong team of networking between the inventors who develop alternative energy and propulsion concepts and devices, what have you. And my vision was the same before I met Steve Ellswick. And I started a virtual think tank on the internet, and we're international, where we exchange information so we could find the missing keys that people were looking for. And it actually does work, because there was people that were meeting on the forum and looking for an answer, and they would find someone who would have that answer. At the same token, that person that had an answer for them was also looking for an answer for themselves, would find a missing piece from that person, the individual that they were consulting with on the forum. So my vision was to take this up a notch and provide some property in which we could all live and work together. And then I run into Steve while I was doing my research and looking around for different inventors and different people, and discovered that he had this Tesla Tech conference, and he was doing this up here near Salt Lake City here. And so I started coming to this conference in 2003, and ever since then I've been trying to network with other people and try to get their bits of give and take, and find out what they thought about doing something like developing a research facility and developing a community in which we all can live and work together. And so it's been strong. It's been people that are looking at different viewpoints, but we're trying to discover a way that we can put this on a single shade of music here, and try to get everybody organized so we can pool our resources and pool our efforts together to try to establish this community.
Well, now, so in terms of the way people are going to do it, then it sounds like everybody's buying their own property. Now, in terms of the community development part, are you guys going to have to pool funds for that, like the shared buildings and stuff, or?
Well, we're hoping that we have a few ideas, and there are some people out there who have some ideas that could provide us quite a bit, an exuberant amount of funding. It's just a matter of trying to plan and organize that part of the structure to make this happen. But it looks like it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like it's going to take beyond 5 or 10 years to actually make this accomplishment.
And that's not bad to build a community all on itself. Well, now, Bill, you're definitely more on the science and technical side of things. What are some of the initiatives that you're probably going to be pushing, I guess, at the ranch?
Well, mainly energy. You know, if we're going to be developing this craft, they have to be powered by some energy source. And we're also looking into temporal gravity, anti-gravity effects, because we're all familiar with the John Hutchison effect and, you know, his anti-gravity work.
So mostly new forms of energy and then propulsion to some degree.
Exactly.
But you're seriously looking at a spacecraft now. Now this goes back to the vision, right? You saw this craft being built, and so in a way it's almost fulfilling your own destiny, I guess.
That's right, Ted. Yeah, what I saw was nearing completion of an actual craft, a disc-shaped craft.
Now, have you had any synchronicities, I guess, where the pieces start to fall in place? When you're driving through the desert and you say, "This is the road, this is the one."
Yeah. A big one happened in September of '98. At that point, I knew the pieces were starting to come together. I mean, keep in mind, you know, I had this vision almost 30 years ago, and it's impossible to communicate this with people. You know, it's like, you're crazy, you know, a community building these ships. You know, that's insane, okay? But, you know, 1998 came along, and I went to a Hoagland-Bearden conference in Seattle.
Okay.
And he started talking about these things. And I knew at that point the pieces are starting to come together.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
And the technologies are starting to come together, you know, to form this ranch project. So I knew at that point the initial phases of the ranch project, you know, were coming together.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to add a comment to what Bill's talking about these ships. When I started looking at the global warming issue, it seemed to me like we're only contributing probably about 10% of that. I think this is more to do with cyclical events and their weather pattern. And if everybody noticed lately that the weather is changing dramatically over the past few years. And ever since we had that situation down in Louisiana with Hurricane Katrina, I started thinking, you know, as far as disaster preparedness, we really don't have anything that would be substantial, considering in ways to move large amounts of people from place to place to get them out of the area of disaster, even if there was a forewarning in the proper time and sequence to get these people evacuated. As you see, we were gridlocked. People were trying to leave Louisiana, really couldn't get out of there in time. And so I was thinking, perhaps the best disaster preparedness would be to build something like, not your motorhome that rides on the road, but a mobile home that's the shape of like a Jupiter 2, if you want to use that for an example. And so the best way would be to sell this and push the people and motivate them in that direction to build something like this out of necessity. Out of necessity comes the mother invention. And out of necessity, if we try to sell this to the American public, not just the American public, but other people in other places in the country too would pick up on the idea once they see us doing it, is to use this as a vehicle, as an escape vehicle. So in the event there is a disaster, you can move your family into this home that can actually fly through the air. And it provides its own power and water, and you can grow food hydroponically. And so you're always prepared to leave anywhere you want to.
Now, is this related to, you know, I guess a lot of people might use the phrase end times prophecies and stuff. And I think that's kind of condescending. And the reason I mention that is, you know, you go back to the 1950s, the H-bomb was a worry, right? So people have been looking for that escape route for decades in one way or another. They're burrowing under the ground, or they're buying houses, you know, well above the river level, you know, stuff like that, you know. And every group has its own predictions, I guess. Do you guys see any hard and fast disasters, or is it just general preparedness?
Well, the pattern seems to be evident. The more of this is going to come, and and it's going to increase exponentially. And so I don't want to sell this as end of the world or end times. I want to sell this as simply disaster preparedness. The problem with that is not everybody has the time or funding, and not everybody believes that they should have to spend that extra expense of building a bunker in the earth. And when it actually happens and they fail to recognize that beforehand, if they already had something tangible, which they didn't have to take their time in building themselves, they could just buy something that's already available. So my idea is to have something basically, instead of a lot full of motorhomes, which they use on family vacations, is to have a format in which we're developing they can acquire as they see it coming, and they decide to, if they want to, even rent them. But the idea is renting these would also become a part of leasing them. So if they just disappeared without paying, we would have some means to provide the funding resources for what it costs us to produce these to the families.
That are a replacement technology.
Exactly, and perhaps maybe there might be some other means of funding for these people to have these at an affordable cost. So that affordable cost is what I would like to do is get that in relative terms of what it costs you to lease a motorhome. For example, you can lease this, and then it would take off out of the air. But it would be all computer guided. And what I mean by that is the people need to look at Paul Moeller, for example. He developed the Sky Car, and I've been following him since the 70s when he had the little round, little craft, the little propellers in. And even then I was thinking, well, that would be a cool way if we could improve on that design to have a mobile home with that structure and something a little more improved in the propulsion system. But again, we're talking about environmental and security concerns and issues of people like moving across the borders without having to stop through checkpoints. So I looked at what Paul Moeller was doing, and he was using GPS. Of course, 20, 40 years ago, we didn't have the computer technology and global positioning satellites we do have out there for navigation. So I think I've seen a different change in the infrastructure which makes this possible and makes it more readily available, and it would be computer controlled as far as navigation, so we don't have to worry about people flying into each other.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting proposal. Well, I guess I should go back to Bill. Now, Bill, you're just in the process of moving, right? Aren't you?
That's right, Tim.
Now, Gary's already out in Arizona, but you're just getting ready to move yourself, so.
That's right. I'm kind of in the intermediate stage here. We ended up selling a house there in Indiana, and we're in process of moving down to Arizona. My father and sister are still down there in Florida, and we're kind of looking for a way moving them out. We're trying to control our expenses here. And I figure in probably 6 months, perhaps less, I'll be making the move down to Arizona. For right now, we're kind of looking at Mesa, Apache Junction area. And my dad and sister are looking for property, horse property up there in the Prescott-Payson area.
Okay, so moving the whole clan westward then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're kind of thinking of, well, we're starting the ranch operation here.
Yeah, well, and you finally presented that in 2006. I know it's something that you guys have mentioned over the last few years, so to finally see it is kind of a good sign. I think it means you guys are finally making some headway with it. So, well, thanks again for your time, and again, we've been speaking with Gary Voss from Tap 10 and Bill Alek from Alek.